Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 2 live stream for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Gonna talk some live golf as well over there in Las Vegas, but overall stoked for the weekend. Have a little flight tomorrow to go visit some family, so wanted to make sure we could go out here, bring you guys some content out here for round 2 at each event. You gotta make sure we go over everything you need to know, right? Whether it's for DFS, props, you guys name it. We're going to cover all of that for you. So if you're in here, you're my type of person, right? Obviously, round 1 did not end at the WM. Live golf, a little bit more of a niche market there too. If you're researching early for PGA or you're out there digging into the live golf stuff, well, you're officially a hardcore golf fan. And again, one of the kind of people that I like, and glad to have you in the live stream. So we got Anthony down there, Jaden, two of my people down there, right, that are at it here on Thursday night at this point. A bunch of hardcores down there. So you love to see it. What's going on, guys? Let's hop right on in. I'm going to be on a flight while a lot of the golf tournament is going on, which might be a little bit of a blessing and a curse. Obviously, the sweat is going to be there because I'm going to have a lot of exposure out there for round 2. But I'm not going to be able to track it shot for shot. So it'll be the first time for a while that I'm not going to be sitting there playing pretty close attention. So we'll see how that goes. But in terms of our round 1 exposure, it looks like we're really going to get that huge PM wave advantage. So I mentioned that possibility yesterday. It was something that we really wanted to look at. And I didn't go 100% PM wave, right? That wasn't the idea out there at all. It was that I wanted some of my exposure, right, to try and stack that side in case we got a sizable advantage. And if we split it by the wave right here, it doesn't look like very much, but just know that over here in hole 7, right, there's only been one score counted and it was a bogey, right? So that's inflating that by an entire shot right there. So in reality, it's about a 1.6 shot difference as of as of right now. That also includes a very small sample over here on hole number 4, right? That was 0.3 shots higher. And you can see on average, right, a lot of the holes with a larger sample, like you have from holes 3 and in, are all playing significantly easier, right, out there in the PM wave. So that would be post break. That would be after they came back out after that delay with lower winds, the temperature about the same. There really wasn't a difference from that perspective. But it all came down to there not being a ton of wind out there and not playing through rain, right? The last hour and a half of that AM wave was getting slaughtered out there with that rain. And tomorrow, course conditions look perfect. So if we head over here to the HRRR, you'll see that we're going to have sub 7 mile an hour winds for the entire day. And starting right around 40 degrees, gets quickly up to about 45, 48 degrees over there towards the end of the first round. And then by the time you get to the PM wave, you can see a lot of the temperatures get to the high 50s. The end of today, you can actually see it on there, right? Is right around 46 degrees at 5 p.m. local time, which isn't bad, right? But it's going to be about that temperature by 9 a.m. tomorrow, right? So at least per this HRRR forecast, they're calling for it to be significantly warmer overall over there on Friday compared to what we had for today's action, and for the winds all day to pretty much be non-existent. So this PM wave advantage, right, where I think we're going to see it is tomorrow, right? The PM wave and AM wave are both going to get after it, right? I think both waves with soft greens, preferred lies, you're going to see them shoot under par. But this end of round 1, right, where you have all of those guys that have to finish up play tomorrow, are going to be playing in nearly perfect conditions, right? The one gripe they'll have is that it's going to be damn cold for the first hour, maybe 2 hours of play. But by the time it's 9 a.m., right, which will be an hour and a half into tee times, I think, you're talking about perfect conditions, right? The same as they had in the afternoon, that for all purposes was shooting under par, right, out there in the first 12-hole sample, or I think it's 11-hole sample, right, that we have between here. And again, a lot of that is completely, thrown off by the small sample size here. You could say the same thing about it being lower, right, in terms of the scoring average. And I would say that that's probably true as well. But it's irrefutable that the conditions looked a lot easier out there in the afternoon. So I'm going to lean into that on the prop side, right? I think the scoring averages over here for PGA, I don't think we have a board up, just double checking that right now. We probably won't get one until the morning. So we'll have to do a little bit of a game plan when it comes to the prop side later, but we'll have some live golf stuff to talk up. So our purpose, our stream slips here are probably going to be over there on the live side, but we'll also talk a little bit about the PGA props. In terms of our showdown exposure, if I wanted guys to go out at a certain time of the day, it would probably be right around midday, right? You can see out there, it's going to be sunny right around midday, right around 52 degrees Fahrenheit. It actually gets a little bit warmer, closer to like 3 p.m. You can see it's there at 53, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That combined with low winds is going to let these guys get after it, right? They're not going to have, as much restriction with their distance. They're going to be getting a lot more out of every single club. And on top of that, they're not going to be playing into a 20 mile an hour headwind like you had on a few holes today. Most notably, 6 through 9 were incredibly difficult, a lot of because of the wind direction. And on the back 9, you had a couple holes, I think it's only 2 or 3 on the back 9, that are into the wind, that played exceptionally difficult as well. One of them was 16, where you had that wind direction. And then I think hole number 15, that par 5, was also a lot harder in the morning wave, just because of the wind direction. And if we take a look at the scoring, right, you'll see in the PM wave, we had one bogey over there in the PM wave. Minwoo Lee was that bogey, by the way, or actually he might have made a par on that hole. He reached it in 2, and there was another player that also reached that green in 2 over there in that PM wave. There weren't even people going for it over there in the morning. So that's the kind of drastic change that you're going to see. Just that's important, right, for our 4-round stuff. But when we're talking about showdown scoring, you're going to see a lot more ceiling rounds. And it's not like we didn't see ceiling rounds today, right? We still had people going low. If you look at the scores over here, -6 for Thagala, -5 for Novak, right? That's through 9 holes. If that tells you how low they're going to be able to go tomorrow, right? If Novak in the afternoon in just a 9-hole sample went nuclear out there, that's what we're going to see tomorrow, right? It's -7, probably even a -8 round, depending on the pin locations they choose, which means you got to take guys that have that upside, right? That are going to be pin chasing, that maybe are getting really hot with the approach play, because you're not just going to luck sack putt your way, right, to a -8, -9 round. The only exception to that rule would be a Wyndham Clark, right, who gained like 7 strokes putting over there at Pebble Beach. But that's a once-in-a-lifetime type of putting performance. And with these type of conditions, with how soft it's going to be, it's likely going to be somebody that goes out there and spikes with the putter and the approach play. So that's what I would say in terms of targeting tee times. Right, I think the AM wave might have a slight advantage over the quote-unquote PM wave. Your AM guys, I think they'll actually be teeing off closer to like 1-2 p.m. The only reason I say they might have an advantage is that we know they're going to finish their round tomorrow. They unfortunately do have to play after playing like 12 holes beforehand. So I do fatigue might be a little bit of a factor. I do have to say that. But what I like is that we know they're going to play tomorrow. And if you look at Saturday, right, it's probably a little bit too early to look ahead. It looks a little bit cooler. You've got some rain in the forecast that might throw things off. Those guys in the PM wave, if they don't end up finishing play tomorrow, might be playing on a slightly harder setup in the morning, right? Kind of like the guys early tomorrow, like the first hour or so, might be on a slightly harder golf course. That's not an ideal scenario, right? Ideally for our round 2 showdown lineups, I think we want guys playing between like 1 and 5 p.m., right? When it's like 55 degrees, no wind out there, we know for certain it's going to be calm. That's when I would ideally want my guys playing, right? And I think the only thing working against that would be the fatigue factor, right? Just playing all of those holes, which I do kind of worry about, which is why I'm not only just taking guys, right, that are playing early. There's going to be guys both in the AM and the quote unquote PM wave that I'm playing out there for my exposure. So in terms of what we're getting for DFS, let's check down in chat if you have any questions. If not, we're just going to go through some of the top plays that I like. It'll give you a good idea of the kind of player selection that I'm looking at, kind of the thought process, right, that I'm going through when making my player pool. And then, of course, we'll go over any questions that you've got. What do I think the cut will be? That's a really good question. Let me reference what Data Golf thinks, and then I'll give you my thoughts on top of that. So they've got it at even par right now, maybe going there to -1. As of right now, your top 65 in ties, which is, kind of like irrelevant, I should say, because of the fact that the whole, first round hasn't finished. Top 65 in ties would be even par right now. I'm going to say -1, maybe -2, right? So Data Golf thinks that -1 has a 29.8% chance. I would say that that seems pretty low. Or like, I think if anything, that should be like one of the higher percentages. I think if anything, it might go to -2 as well. So a lot of that's because of the scoring conditions changing, right? With the low winds, relatively high temperatures, right? At least compared to round one, right? Higher temperatures. I think they're really going to get after it. What's going on, Curtis? Another hardcore golf fan down here. What's going on, guys? Welcome in video games as well. Almost all the tournament will be played below 50 degrees, except for tomorrow, right? Tomorrow afternoon, 55 degrees. Seems like a pretty decent time to play to me. What's going on, Antonio? Another hardcore down there. Doing well. Getting ready for my trip tomorrow. So a little bit busy, but glad to be able to get this live stream in here. So let's go through some of my top plays. If there's anyone you want to touch on specifically, just let me know down in the live chat. Then afterwards, we're going to talk some props. So going to go through this quickly. It's late, right? I've got to get some of this stuff done for this trip, but definitely want to go through this player poll. So if you guys are like up top, I've got Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, both going off early. And I want to target guys that I think that are just poppers from the Showdown perspective, right? So Justin Thomas, not shy of going low. Sam Burns, same thing, right? Volatile, right? Can definitely blow up from time to time, but also has the firepower to fire those 6-7 par under par rounds. And with the conditions we're going to see, I think you're going to see those kind of rounds, right? I think you're going to see guys that score 65, 70 fantasy points on DraftKings. And the types of guys that actually get to those performances, right, on a single round sample sizes are, JTs, Max Homas. Jordan does it from time to time, but like Sam Burns is known for it. Whereas Matt Fitzpatrick, not really as known for going low, right? JT Poston, same thing, right? You can see that he's not really known for going low outside of his tour win at the John Deere Classic. Sahith Theegala, though, right? Volatile, but known for first round leader type performances, right? Like you saw from him there in round one. So with my player poll, knowing that you're going to see some real low scoring out there, I want to embrace the aggressive birdie or better percentage type of mindset. So a good way to do it is just to look at past Showdown performance, right? Look at ceiling performances, see who gets there the most often, and don't really worry about the median projection, right? You're going to have guys like Burns, for example, who their average fantasy points won't be all that impressive because he has a lot of dud performances that severely bring down the average. But if you look at pop performances, whether it's for fantasy points or just in terms of finishing position, right? If you just look at his last 10, 12 finishes on tour, for example, he has a lot of finishes where he'll go out there, right? Just hardly make the cut or miss the cut out there. And then top 5, top 10, top 5, top 10, right? Like he's either on or really off his game at a given event. And the thing I like about some of this AM exposure is guys like JT Sam Burns, if it locks at 9:30, might be at like -1, right? Might be -2 by that time in the morning, right? After, let's say, like a half an hour of play. By the end of their round, they might be -3, -4, should be chalk heading into round two. But because DraftKings has their lock at 9:30 right now, and there's a chance they don't move that back, you might have guys that are way under-owned from the AM wave, right? So just like quality players like a JT, a Sam Burns, you can see JT I've got at 29%, right? So let's not act like he's low-owned, but a Sam Burns, for example, just 15.3%, right? If we had lock pushed back, right? Let's say he shoots, -4, right, over his last 12 holes or so, and he's -5, well, he'd probably be like 30% owned, right, out there for round two. But because there's a chance that we have the early lock, guys like him might go underexposed, right? Compared to where they usually would be. So I kind of like this place. I kind of like this kind of slate because you have to do a lot of your thinking ahead of time. And for me, it's all about skill set, right? It's about the game theory edge, right? Now with JT, right, I'm not getting any sort of game theory edge, right? So outside of him, it's about the game theory side of things and then about those pop performances. Down here in the 8K range, I like Minwoo Lee. He reached that par 5 and 2. It was hole number 15 over there in the back 9, and then 3-putted. He had multiple other birdie looks from less than 20 feet and did not convert on any, which is completely outside his game. He's normally a really good putter, really long off the tee, which I think is helpful when you're at a cold desert course like this, especially one that's going to play as soft as it is. But it's playing under par. You can throw darts out there, and the players that are going to be set up the best to take this low, maybe get one of those 7-8 under par rounds, is a long player like Minwoo, right? That is streaky with the flat stick. So maybe not the best start, right? He's 1 over par at this stage, I think, through like 7 holes over there with his round 1. But by the end, he's got, 17, right? He might end up making a birdie there. It's perfectly set up for Minwoo to go out there and make a birdie. Then he's got the whole front 9 to work with, real easy hole number 3. Might end up under par. And normally, right, if you have a guy like Minwoo at not -2, right, over here in the 8K range, it'd be like 15% owned out there for Showdown. Now we might get him at single digit out there for round 2. So that's kind of why I like this slate. And it could go the opposite way, right? Minwoo might end up blowing up, right? And being +4 by the time we end up playing him. Even in that case, right? Maybe he's slightly higher owned than he should be. It's okay, right? He's a pivot, right? He's a flyer. He's going to have to go low to make the cut. It's not the worst scenario. It's not the best, right? Obviously, we want guys to be playing well coming into the round, but there is room for potential improvement there. Next up, we got Beau Hossler, $8,300 +1. Another guy that I think gets slept on just because of how he started round 1, I should say. And a lot of times you see guys have a bad round 1, wake up there in round 2, and completely turned it around. Well, it might be like that, but in the middle of his round 1 performance. So, whether it's the, drink at the turn that some people get, whether it's the hot dog at the turn that ends up completely turning your game around, all the different like superstitions that people have out there with their games, right? Maybe he wakes up and just goes out there and starts playing better. That is reasonable. You see that all the time out there on the PGA Tour, which is, again, another reason I like this slate. Like, Hossler was like 15% owned, nearly 16% in some contests out there for the main slate. And now he's going to be 8.1% owned, right? All because of him being +1 through like 5-6 holes, which really isn't all that bad, right? Let me get some water. Let's get to our next play here. It's going to be Thomas Dietrich. All right, so Dietrich, horrible start too, right? So following that same narrative, only 5.6% owned because of that. Like, okay, give me all the Dietrich then, right? If no one wants to play him out there, by the time he's done with round 1, right? I mean, he might be even par by the time he's starting that, second round Showdown, which is totally fine, right? I mean, you're not worrying about placement, right? That's not part of what, the equation for a round 2 Showdown. But 5.6% ownership and a guy that's playing damn good golf over the last few weeks, and that's gone nuclear low on a few round 2 performances right out there on Friday specifically. Maybe there's something to that, right? Getting 1 round under it, right? Seeing the golf course, kind of figuring out what to do, and then going out there and going low for the second round. You also got Taylor Montgomery here, another really good putter that you can take on top of Dietrich. $7,200 AM wave, so should be out there in the best conditions. And what I like is that, he's -1, right? So he's playing decently, but he's not -5 like a Novak, right? There's some flashy starts that guys had out there in the AM wave. And your casual golf fan, and this is what I want people to realize, right, about your competition. A lot of these GPPs are going to be building lineups on the shitter. They're going to be sitting there just looking at the current score. They're not going to know what AM, PM wave is. Some of them might not even know that the round is still going on, right? And that round 2 isn't going to start until later in the day. Those type of casuals are going to look at Novak at -5 and go, oh, this guy must have had a really good round. Got to play him, right? They're going to look at Dietrich, a guy like Montgomery, even here, just like -1, right? Who still has to finish his round to go, oh, they had like okay rounds, right? Dietrich's case, they're going, oh, he had a pretty bad round, right? Not knowing the context that they have more golf to play and that the ownership is going to be completely inflated and deflated in a few different cases, right? In the case of Montgomery, maybe slightly deflated, right? Because he only shot -1, but it's not like that was a bad score, right? That was 2 shots better than the average of the morning wave. So 6.2%, I think that's reasonable on Montgomery. And you have a lot of guys, right? Like Hossler, for example, Dietrich, Minwoo, you're going to get an ownership discount on just because the casuals and people that aren't doing research, out there aren't going to play as often out there with that bias based on current score. Going down into the 6K range, you have, who's it? JJ Spawn, we've got here as a highlighted play, $6,800 plus 3 currently. And I've got him at 0.9% ownership. So this play is all about the ownership, right? I know he's playing in the PM wave, which might lead over there into Saturday. But even with that, he has a good track record at this golf course, especially under wet conditions, where he top fived in 2017, which was the last time we had these wet conditions at TPC Scottsdale. And he's only 0.9% owned. And look at that, the long-term course fit, right? He's number 28 in the field. That is an extreme value at that kind of price tag. And then lastly, the last highlighted play is going to be Will Gordon at $6,400. Also +1, so a pedestrian start to his event to this point. Still has a lot of round one to work with, right? So could improve upon that. It's only 0.7% owned. So essentially no one playing him, right? Sub 1% out there. Will Gordon has the length to take on a golf course that's going to play a little bit longer. And on top of that is known for high birdie production, right? And kind of circling back to our top end plays, right? JT, Burns, Minwoo, right? Guys known for going low. Bo Hostler, known for spike rounds. Thomas Dietrich, right? Must I say more than his rounds at, Farmers and Pebble, right? Where he went out there and went nuclear out there for rounds 2 and 3. These are the type of players that I want to get to that are known for that spike performance. Johnny Vegas, right? Just throwing out a few more names. Let me give you guys a few more. Sun J.M., right? Known for the nuclear round. Siwoo Kim, even known for like the nuclear round. But in terms of like value plays, like Ryan Fox on the DP World Tour, known for taking courses super low, not really as consistent as he'd probably want to be. Let's find a few more. Johnny Vegas, right? I mentioned, right? $6,500, probably worth a few looks. And one more for the stream while we're here. Just guys that go nuclear low that I'm going to be playing. There's a bunch I'm playing, so I know I can find one more here at some point. Like EVR, right? Extremely volatile player. Not shy about going out there shooting -5, -6. Thing I like about him too is that he's a high birdie percentage player, about 30% for his last 3-4 months, which is elite tier stuff. That's like top 10 stuff on the PGA Tour. If you're making more than 30% birdies out there, love that at $7,400. So there's a couple guys in that PM wave, right, that again might lead into Saturday that I'm still playing, and there's a good amount of them, especially down here in the 7K range, and a lot of them are those poppers like you have there with an EVR. Let's see, any specific questions, and then if not, we're going to talk props. Good question. We can look at the betting board afterwards. So we're going to do props, and then we'll look at the betting board. I'm good with that. Not that I know of because I haven't checked yet. Did Luce shoot 4 over on his last 2 holes? He must have, because he was -2 up until that point. So yeah, you were expecting to see me on the YouTube golf championship. Yeah, no, not invited to that, but I watched a little, looked fun. Since a lot of guys didn't finish round 1, what happens with round 2? So they're just going to start round 2 as soon as those guys finish up. You're going to have some of the guys that finish up before the rest, right? So you have to think about it, right? There's like 2-3 hours of tee times. Actually, I think maybe even like 3.5 hours of tee times out there on this type of event in each wave. So you're going to have guys that finish up, that go out there, get prepped, right? And they're going to send them out there as soon as possible, right? So they've probably got to give them a half an hour to go out there, freshen up and whatnot, and get ready to go out there for the next round. But yeah, round 2 will start as soon as humanly possible. I think DraftKings is going to lock it early in the morning. They have it at 9:30 lock right now. I don't think that they're going to move that back. So you just got to set lineups beforehand, right? You're not going to know how everyone's finishing up in the morning, which is why I think you're going to have such advantages out there with ownership. I think people are going to overreact, build lineups tonight based on the current leaderboard, which is really all you can do, right? And if they're going to do that, we know where they're going to put their ownership, right? Ownership is so closely tied to the current leaderboard when it comes to Showdown. That makes it a huge edge, because the leaderboard from rounds 2 and 3 in particular mean literally nothing when it comes to your fantasy score, right? Sure, your form's great and all, but it doesn't give you placement points. Gut feeling, does DK change lock time? I don't think so. They might. It kind of depends on, as you know, it depends on when they drop the tee times. If PGA Tour Live or PGA Tour, whatever comms, goes out there and says, we're going to tee off at latest, let's say like 12:30 local time or something like that, then they'll move it to that time, right? So PGA Tour sometimes gives us a heads up of like when to expect the round two tee times. If they do that, then yeah, they'll do it. But if not, we probably won't see it move back. So um, I would say look at that. That's going to be your best barometer on that, is whether the PGA Tour gives us that idea. How many guys have tickets to the Super Bowl and want to miss the cut? No idea. There's probably a non-zero amount, but probably not many, right? What do I think about Nick Hardy? Good question. Let me take a look at his ball striking stats. So I didn't get to see much of his round. I know he finished with an okay round in terms of birdie production, but I want to look at his shots gained metrics. So give me a second. Let me find Nick Hardy over here on the other tab, and I'll give you my full thoughts. So he lost in everything but off the tee, ended up +1 at the end of the day. He's only played 5 holes at this point. So I was totally off about the birdie production thing. I thought he was closer to the end of his round. I must have been thinking of somebody else, but let's look at this. So he hasn't had a good start, but that doesn't mean you can't play him, right? Obviously, still has, in his case, 13 holes to work with. Could end up even under par by the time he starts round two. In my ownership projections, let's double check that. Look at where his ownership's at. I believe, yeah, he's here at 7 grand. I've got him at 3% ownership. Totally fine with that kind of play. Going into the week, I had him as my number 50 play, so decent in the model, and relatively low owned. What do I think about only playing guys finishing the first round tomorrow in round 2 showdown? I think you could take that as an edge, right? I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't think that's going to be a massive edge, but you could totally do it, right? Hope that you end up finding something there. I kind of did that this week, right? I took all the PM guys just kind of hoping that we'd get a delay, right? I didn't know there was going to be a delay, but I knew that there was a possibility that that could end up happening. And I took a chance and like 30% of my lineups, and now I've got 30% with the nuts conditions. So it worked for me. It could definitely work for you. Now, in this case, I'm not sure if I'm going to tail that, but you could totally go with it, right? It worked for me. So we are looking for guys that are playing their round 2 as the original wave they were in. Kind of, right? Because of the delay, right? It kind of does that. Yeah, it's interesting, huh? Are you shocked about Homa's round? He looked like he wanted to go home around hole 5 today. I don't know. He looked like he was grinding to me, right? He had a lot of putts that were lipping out of the back. I'm not shocked because this is a golf course that he's kind of had pedestrian starts at, particularly rounds 1 and 2. He hasn't been sharp, but I don't know if I'd say I'm shocked, right? Is you just really good now? The dude always shoots under par rounds. He might be, right? I was pretty high on him going into this week. The modeling loved him. He might just be. And honestly, I'm kind of treating him like that. Thoughts on Siwoo? I think he's an excellent play. Let's look at Siwoo's shots gained metrics to give you guys an idea. I know he's -1 at this point, right? I know he's a guy who's only played a few holes, but to this stage, he has gained across all 4 stat categories. He only has 1 birdie, but he's just been playing well. I was following him hole by hole, kind of tracking him, just hitting some fairways, wasn't hitting it all that far offline off the tee. When he missed, it was in a reasonable spot and was hitting reasonable approach shots, right? He was hitting them to like 25, 30 feet on most holes, which is totally fine around this golf course, especially out there on the front 9 that he was playing. So yeah, I like Siwoo Kim. He was pretty popular this week, so he'll be popular tomorrow, but I think he's probably worth some of that consideration. I guess closing thoughts is wake up tomorrow, right? Check the weather forecast. If you see that, let's say the late winds are going to die down, or maybe there's a little bit wind coming in late, any kind of weather variation, right? Change up your strategy, right? Don't be married to players in your player pool. If you see an advantage out there before play starts, whether it's the 9:30 lock, maybe they move it back and you can kind of react to some of the morning leaderboard stuff. Take advantage of all of that, right? So be paying attention to it in my Patreon and my Discord and stuff. I'll be doing updates on what they end up planning with that. My flight's not till midday, so I'll definitely be able to do that up until about lock time, make sure you stay tuned into all that. So that's all I'll say for Showdown, right? Go out there, play the game theory edge. The only guy I really want to throw up in my mouth about playing is JT at 30%. So I'm playing him about half my lineup. So I'm getting at least a little bit of leverage out there with Justin Thomas. But the rest of my player pool is much more in, trying to find differentiation, right? Pivots, that kind of thing. JT, though, is, I guess, the one piece of chalk I'll be indulging in. And Scotty Scheffler, it's not like you can't play him, right? If you want to take a piece of chalk and make it Scotty Scheffler, I could not doubt you for it. I couldn't blame you for it, I should say. He's just world-class at everything. All right, let's go through some prop stuff now. So what I'm going to do on the prop side is go through some of the averages for today. So in terms of what we saw in the afternoon, we saw likely an under par scoring average. If you're just joining us, this whole 6 and 7 average, where you have a whole 1.3 over par scoring average between the two, is completely inflating this PM average to look like it's playing over par. Before the last 30 seconds of play, where you had these scores logged over there on 6 and 7, you ended up having like a 1.5 under par scoring average. So this is only because one guy finished on hole 7, right? He ended up making a bogey because he was playing out there in the dark like a dumbass. But then over here on hole number 6, you had just one guy finish on that hole with a bogey. The whole group finished over there on hole number 6, but it once again inflates that average. So it was playing under par. So over here on the prop side, when we get stuff over here for PGA, which, speaking of, I guess let's refresh this. Oh, we got a board. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. There we go. On live stream, perfectly timed. So let's match this up. So they've got Sanjay at 67. He's probably at like 68.5. Look at that. Over here on Prize Picks, there is value on one of the two sites. We can say that much. So I'm glad we're into the prop side now. We got all these to drop. There's got to be some sort of value on sportsbooks. So let me see if DraftKings dropped their odds. My guess is that they haven't, and that's why we have such a discrepancy, is that they don't have anything to compare to. But let's check. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. This is round 1. Do they have round 2 up? No, so they don't even have round 2 stuff up. Oh boy. And they've got him at 5.5 birdies. Oh boy. This is going to be one of the two sites has a lot of value right now. So they've got Scotty at 66.5, 67.5 over here. Oh boy. We're going to have to figure this one out. So the conditions, right, as we already mentioned, to look a lot better. It is still going to be relatively cold. So I don't think they're going to tear up the course and shoot like 3 under par. But I do think it's going to play like 1 under par for a scoring average. So over here on the Prize Pick side, having a guy like Jordan Spieth at 2 under, I feel like that makes sense. I feel like somebody like Sanjay, we might even want to take an under on. That's just my first instinct looking at this board. Yeah, especially looking at some of the pricing. That would probably be one of my first leans I would look at with this board over here. But on Underdog, same thing said, an over at 67.5 also seems pretty reasonable. So let's see. They've got 5.5 birdies. What do they got these guys for birdies? So 4.5 for your studs rather than 5.5 over there in Underdog. 5.5 isn't a lot, right? That seems a little bit high. Not even a little bit. Seems a lot bit high out there for a projection. 13 cumulative par 5 strokes. Par 5s today were not easy. So let's take a look at those. So 0.46 under, 0.51 under. So that's about 0.96 under. And then one of them played slightly over par. So it played 0.92 under par. And they've got these guys projected at 2 under. That's also, I know it's going to play a little bit easier, right? I know if we, sort this by AM, PM, it should have technically been playing under par. But they have guys like Sunjay at 3 under. I mean, that's again, it feels a little bit optimistic. Let's see. So Tom Kim is one of the only projections that looks close across both sites. Let's see. What do they have Tom Kim at? Do they even have him up? Doesn't look like it. If they did it, they would probably have them at like 68.5. So that's why I said they, probably be close across both sites, but don't even have them to choose from. Let's see. Harmon is 68. Where's Ryan Harmon? They don't even have Brian Harmon up. Okay, so we can't cross-reference all of these, but it definitely looks like these are just too low in terms of your strokes projections. And honestly, like 5 birdies for guys like Poston, like that's also a little bit too optimistic. So it feels like if you're gonna do anything in underdog, right, it's fades. It's unders on birdies, it's overs on strokes, which I don't love so much because of the weather, right? It's going to be calm out there. It's not like I love going out there. I'm in fading guys that are, some of the best players in the world, but maybe some of the better value for unders on strokes or even potential overs for birdies is over here on prize picks, right? Because you're going to get better projections in almost every single scenario. And I'm limited to hell over here. So I'm sure I'll be posting a lot over there on Patreon. But at least on this account, I'm not going to be able to get down nearly as much volume as I'm looking for. So let's find some slips on prize picks. It feels like the undervalue on this side is probably the best way to attack the slate. So if you have any props you want my opinion on, go ahead, let me know. Maybe suggestions out here for the stream slip. But Sunjay M at 68.5, I'm having to shoot, what is it, 3 under par at the stadium course to cover that. Um, that's still a decent round. It's not a ceiling round, I'm going to say. It's probably gaining about 2 strokes to the field to go out there and shoot a 68. I do like that for Sunjay. He has a pretty good track record here. Did not putt very well in what I saw from his action today. So let's put him in there. I kind of like Minwoo, but at the same time, 68.5. I wish it would be at 69 strokes. Honestly, Hideki at 69 is extremely tempting, given his course history here. Past that, like I don't like trusting the scrubs down low. Yeah, unless there's somebody down here that I happen to trust, I'll take some of the scrubs, but not on this kind of slate. So we got these two. It would be an under on Hideki, by the way. I'm not sure why it had the over there. They changed up the interface where they changed it to less and more rather than more and less, which was a little bit annoying to see. But yeah, now that we've got it right on there, it's a 2.75x payout. That's not a terrible lean. We could look at some of the other boards. So let's look at greens. They got 13.5. That's too high. In fact, could even consider like fading a JT Poston at 13.5. That would give us a 5x payout. So we'll keep that in our back pocket. And then over here for fairways, 7.5 for your duds, 8.5 for your studs is pretty spot in line. But I wanted to look at the birdie board and see if anyone really stuck out. 4 birdies is probably a line that I would hammer over on. And like at this point, Hideki Matsuyama, I took him for over 3.5 right out here for round one. He's at like 3 through like 7 holes or something like that. So he's absolutely smashing it. Now he's chipped in twice. So that's why he's absolutely smashing his line. But he's gone over this line and I think like 10 of 16 rounds. It's something extremely impressive out there for Hideki Matsuyama. And with low winds and soft greens, that sounds like perfect for Hideki. So I'm tempted to take this as opposed to his strokes line because he did hit a ball OB today. Did hit one completely off the planet. It's not like he's immune to going out there and missing fairways. So the 69 intrigues me, right? What is he over here in underdog, right? He's at 67.5. He's at 5 birdies there, right? We're getting him at 4 over here on prize picks. It's like, which discrepancy do you prefer, I guess, right? They're 1.5 strokes or 1 birdie difference. The 1 birdie difference feels like better value, right? Because you're safe against the strokes, like him going out there making a double out there. What do they have Sanjay at? 4.5. So like if they had Sanjay at 4 birdies, like I might even consider making this a double birdie slip, but we might end up going with this. So let me cross-reference on Underdog. We'll let this simmer in the back. There's a good chance we end up firing on that 2-man combination. But let's do some line shopping over here in Underdog because we're going to try and make a slip for both sites, of course. Get some water and we'll figure this out. So 2 bogeys seems kind of crazy. because there are some difficult holes out there. Like guys that are shooting low rounds, like a lot of them had at least one bogey on the card. In some cases, like 2, 3 bogeys, and still shot stuff like -3, -4 rounds. Some of the guys that shot -2 had like 4 bogeys on the day, kind of like what you have with Matt Fitzpatrick. We had at least 3. I think he even might have had 4 bogeys out there. That's interesting. And I see Birdie Man says the fairways are also one off from each other. Let me look at that because one off of Prize Picks is crazy. So that he's at 9, 8.5 on Burns. Oh, okay. I actually don't know the fairway rate. I didn't calculate it yet. I can do it real quick, but I'll probably do it off stream and then compare. If the fairway rate was higher, which is possible because of the soft conditions, then I probably agree with Underdog. If not, these are too high, and I would agree with Prize Picks. So I'm gonna have to do the legwork, right? Actually, go out there and bring up the raw data and figure out what the exact average was, because you're not gonna find that on like a PGA Tour website, even in like the media stuff, because the round hasn't ended. So I don't know if Underdog did that legwork, right? Went out there and actually saw the higher fairway average, which I'm not sure, honestly, what it's going to look like. But speaking of, we can just go over here and eyeball it, right? Let's eyeball it, see what we can see here. So if you go over here, you can add driving accuracy to the table, and let's look at this. So a lot of guys that are 50% plus, and normally the average is like 55%. So let's sort this. Damn, you have a lot of small sample size guys that are gonna completely screw this, obviously, because of the fact that they only played like 2, 3 holes. So this is gonna be hard to parse. We're gonna have a really hard time figuring this out by looking at the eye test. But let's look at guys that finished, right? So these are only guys that played a full 18 holes. A lot of 50% pluses here, huh? 35% for Goddard, and he still played pretty well. That's impressive. A lot of 50% plusers, huh? So what this looks like, and again, I'm gonna run the actual data after we get off stream here, is that it's gonna be a slightly higher fairway average than what we had the last few years, which makes sense, right? Because of the fact that we had this rain. Now, is it enough to warrant them being an entire fairway higher? In a lot of cases, like 9 fairways for Matt Fitzpatrick is like that feels like quite a few. Isn't he like 7.5 over here on Prize Picks? No, he's not up, but he probably would be down there at 7.5, maybe 8 fairways. Nine's a lot of fairways to hit. There's only 14 out there, so you can only miss 5 to go out there and hit that. Oof. I don't hate that. Let's put that on the simmer for now. There might even be a better under in fairways to take. So let's go through these. Harmon's an elite guy. We're definitely not fading him for fairways. Ricky, no. Yeah, a lot of guys that are pretty decently accurate. Yeah, a lot of guys at 9. That makes sense. Okay, Hadwin's at 9. Denny's at 8.5. That seems pretty accurate. Akshay's an accurate driver. Sahith at 8.5 is probably too high, but I feel like Fitzpatrick at 9 is arguably even better value because of the push equity. And then down here, Jordan Spieth, JT at 8.5 fairways. Yeah, in general, this board seems a little bit high, I would say, over here on the underdog side. I get what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to account for the fact that more fairways are being hit, but I think they might have overdone it just a little bit. So before I fire on any fairway exposure, I'm going to want to do my due diligence there. But if you're out there, you have access to Data Golf, which I think this is free. Adding that driving accuracy stuff, just go and copy and paste it into Excel, and you can calculate it that way. And if you do here on stream and you can share it with us, that'd be even better. But if not, I'm going to do it myself regardless to double check it. But we would enjoy it here. That's for sure. All right, let's take a look at this. So they have guys at 5.5 birdies. My instinct over here is that we're going to be able to find some juicy fades. So it's just some guys that are just severely mispriced, especially when it comes to that birdie or strokes number. So let me go ahead and try and find some stroke and a half discrepancies. So I already see a bunch, right? Like Burns was at 67. I know on Prize Picks he was 68.5 strokes. And
ideally, I feel like you could try and play into that fatigue, right? You can try and play that game where you're like, okay, these guys are playing what it's gonna be like 30 holes out there tomorrow, and hope that by the end of their round that they're starting to feel it a little bit. So maybe not Jordan Spieth, right, who finished his round, right? He's only gonna play 18 holes, but trying to fade somebody like let's find one here. A Clark, a Hideki, right, that is still playing his round one. Sam Burns, who is known for making bogeys. Like even with an under par scoring average, I think you're going to see about a 4 birdies per round average. That means you're going to have about 2.5 bogeys or worse per round, which for somebody like Burns, that's not an elite tier bogey avoider. Like you have to feel like you'd want to take the over there. So how is he playing so far? I know he started off decently, which is good because I played him this week, and some one and done exposure I'm doing with some buddies. So let's see. 1 birdie on the first hole, then no bogeys to this point. Um, I don't know. Playing okay, right? Didn't take advantage of 3. Missed the green there in 4. Gets to wake up tomorrow and can flush it down the toilet, right? So we probably shouldn't even look at that kind of crap anyways. But we could fade his bogeys, or we could go over here, fade his birdies, his over on strokes. It feels like there's a lot of value on some of the fades here. So unfortunately for Burns, even though again, I like him, I hope he plays well for some of my golf exposure this week. I might end up taking a stance against him here. Oh, it's trying to choose which one's the best. And if we're just looking at his weaknesses, right? He has a weakness for making bogeys. He'll make mistakes from time to time. That's just kind of what Sam Burns does. He doesn't have a lot of bogey-free rounds. He does make a lot of birdies, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him make 6 birdies and still only shoot like 3 under par. And 3 under par, if he was at 66 and a half strokes, it would be the easiest over in human history. So I mean, it's still a pretty easy over at 67 strokes. I'm not going to lie, but this bogey prop also seems rather juicy. In fact, we'll leave that one in the cart for right now. In terms of stuff that we can pair with it, we could always look at some stroke stuff. We could look at another bogey prop if we want to. Right, there's no correlation rules over here in Underdog, just multipliers now. So let's see. A 1.5 bogey prop wouldn't suck on the right type of player. So like Sahith is that kind of guy. Love Sahith, but the guy makes bogeys, and even though I bet on him, there's a good chance he still makes 2 bogeys out here. So we'll throw him in there. He's not in the AM wave, so he's not going to have to play 30 holes. But I still think at 1.5 he's probably too low. We can throw Wyndham Clark into the equation. Wyndham Clark also makes a fair amount of bogeys. Let's see who else. Even the guys at 2 are probably too high. What do they have Lowry at? They probably just bumped that, I would imagine. But Lowry was 69 strokes, probably a stroke and a half discrepancy. Yeah, stroke and a half discrepancy between the 2 sites. Like, I don't hate those either. And the stroke and a half discrepancies that we have, like Sam Burns strokes was a stroke and a half discrepancy. And if we just want to base it on line value, like, I don't hate doing that. Like CLV, like stuff that's just like definitely going to bump, like would be stuff like a Sam Burns. So let's throw that in there. Let's play into the AM wave advantage too, right? Trying to like fade guys that we think are going to be playing in just a lot of holes tomorrow. Let's see. So Hideki at 67 and a half, right? He's at 69 strokes over here on Prize Picks. That'd be another stroke and a half discrepancy to take. And Sam Burns, was he 68 and a half? Yeah, 68 and a half. So that's another 1.5. I thought he might have been at 69 strokes. That would have been 2. That would have been great. Let's see. Adam Scott, 69 and a half. Yeah, another stroke and a half discrepancy. It's almost like the whole board seems to be a stroke and a half discrepancy. Do we have a 2-stroke anywhere? Is I guess going to be the question. What does GT post in? 69 probably? So yeah, 69 strokes. So yeah, he's still only a stroke and a half. There's got to be someone on here, right? That's a stroke and 2-stroke discrepancy. There's got to be. Maybe not. Maybe not. I was hoping we would. So we could just take Sam Burns and match him up with that under on Matty Fitz fairways, which honestly, I don't think it's a horrible idea. I just want to cross-reference his driving stats from last year, just so I can show you guys why I think he's a good play for under on fairways, and then we'll move from there. And again, that's before me doing the field average, which I don't love, but I want to give you guys some sort of exposure for the live stream. So maybe I don't enter it myself, but we'll do it just for the sake of the live stream here. And then afterwards, I'll do my due diligence and figure it out. All right, so let's do this. So this is for the last season. My apologies. And we're going to take a look at just overall driving accuracy, right? Matty Fitz is number 138 on tour, right? So that's below average compared to your just PGA Tour average player out there. And we've got him at 9 fairways. Like that seems way high, right? That seems like way higher than it should be. Then we have Sam Burns here, 1.5 discrepancy. Honestly, Burns 1.5 bogeys, I think it's even better. Like he could still have a decent round, shoot -3 and make 2 bogeys real easy. So we're going to go ahead and take this. So it's nothing against Fitz. Played you this week. You fit this golf course quite well, but you just don't hit fairways. And Sam Burns, great player, but you also make a lot of bogeys. So I'm going to go ahead and mix those two in together. So I don't love fading players, right? I'd rather root for them, but a lot of times the plus EV play and a lot of the sports books is to go out there and play against them. So I played these two. We'll double check on the fairway average later. Maybe I'll tweet it out and make sure that you guys have the information yourselves. But I'd have to imagine it's not 9 fairways hit, right? For an average for the field. And anything less than, let's say, like 9.5 would make this a decent play because Matty Fitz is well below the tour average at hitting those fairways. Let's see any prop stuff. Where are we at? Nope, we're going to prop questions. So other than that, I think that this would be a decent lean over here on Prize Picks, but I'm probably we could enter it, right? I don't think it's the worst play, right? Sunjay 68.5, gain 2 strokes of the field. The only one I'm not sold on is the Sunjay one, right? I wish they had him at 4 birdies. I do worry about his off the tee, right? He did have 2 really bad balls that I saw out there on the ESPN Plus coverage. And these guys all suck at making birdies except for Keith. Ugh. Maybe we hold off on the PGA exposure for now. Let's hop over to the live. I promised you guys we would look at the live board. So let's go ahead and do that before I hop off stream here. I'm going to really dive into my prop research because I've got a lot I want to do before I start entering slips. But over here on Underdog, we've got a full board, a little bit of price differences compared to what we have over there on Prize Picks. Most notably, I saw Haddon at 5.5 birdies. I believe he's over here at 5. Over here on the Prize Pick side. And maybe the slip to go with here is, and let's bring up the Live Golf leaderboard over here. Is Terrell Haddon's been playing some really good golf over there on the Live Golf side. Bryson actually even had a decent day himself too. Let's see how many birdies he had. He only had 4 on the day, but only made 1 bogey. Is potentially taking this Hideki Matsuyama prop, right, and pairing him up with either a Bryson over or a Terrell Haddon over, right, and making that the slip that we go with. Because if we do, we're going to get a normal payout, right? You can see this would pay 5x if we were to mix these 2 sports. I probably would just want to go with the 2-man for the sake of this. And I guess if I'm trying to choose between these 2 players, I'd probably go Bryson over Terrell Haddon, but it's damn close. I mean, both are excellent. I kind of wish I knew their stats a little bit better. In fact, let me bring up my Discord on my end because I know my boy Travis posted something. Let me double check this. So I've got some stats on the other page here. So Bryson hit 11 fairways today and had 16 greens regulation. That's excellent. Let's look at Terrell Haddon. So Terrell hit 9 fairways and 14 greens, which is pretty decent. That's how they went on. That's how they played with their rounds. Both of them are good plays, right? I was hoping one would just be out there punting the lights out, right? And that's why he would be at that winning score. That makes it even tougher. Makes me want to take both of them, right? For an over at 5. What do they have Bryson at over here in Underdog? Is I guess another alternative question. And they still only have them at 5.5. It's not like the price discrepancy is the only reason I want to take Terrell Hatton, but that's another data point, right? I guess that ticks us in that way. Wyndham under 14 greens seems good. It does. It'll play softer, right? Because of the fact that it's, lift clean in place, a lot of rain out there. Low winds kind of worries me, but yeah, the field average is going to be well below 14. So if you're just going based off, the averages, guys reverting back to the mean, couldn't blame you for taking that. It's the plus EV move. Let's say that much. That's for damn sure. In terms of what we're going to do here in prize picks, let's take Hideki at 4. And I'm having such a hard time choosing that I think we're just going to take the 3-man. We're just going to play all 3. If I'm having that hard of a time choosing, it's because I like the plays that much, which means we might as well go for the full 5x play. So again, I have my $15 limit on this account, which is makes it completely useless to go out there and try and play. But for the sake of this, we'll go with the over with these 3. I'll get my exposure later on and hope that you don't see these bump. Of course, Terrell Hatton's at 5.5 over there in Underdog, and Hideki Matsuyama's up at 5 birdies, right? So if you're using their board for comparison, you're getting a lot of value. I do think the sharper board is prize picks, but these would still be values at these kinds of projections. So I thought they were worth taking. So we've got that for Liv. Let's go back to Underdog and find something over here, because we've got some price discrepancies here that we can work with. See stuff being pulled off, which is annoying. Some of them just didn't have stroke stuff up, I think. I'm out of water. Great. And my mouth is dry as hell, unfortunately. We could take the over for Bryson here, right? He's still at 5 birdies. I don't think that's a terrible idea. So let's throw that in there and let's find some kind of pairing. And the guys at 4.5, I don't love that a lot of them are just the washed up older players. But then you have Abraham Answer here, who's a legit contender. Right? He's not one of the better players on the tour, but he does go out there and put up solid birdie production. In fact, if you go over here to, let me just bring up the Live Golf website and I'll show you guys his stats from last year. They weren't eye-popping, but he's still slightly better than the tour average in most metrics. And in fact, if you look at birdie production, let's get his birdie average from last season. So go over here. Let's find good old Abraham Answer. So he had what? Oh, this is only counting this season. So I'm wondering if we can put it back to last season. It won't let us. So wow, they screwed up their freaking stat system to only use it from this 2024. Well, that's unfortunate. So at some point, they're going to have to make this where you can go back and only look at 2023 rather than just the 17 rounds, right, that they have here for Joaquin Niemann, where he's number 1 on tour now, right, in birdie average. That's only because it's like the 2-week sample size. So yeah, unfortunately we can't do that. So I was going to show that for the stream. That's unfortunate, but Abraham Answer, just to spoil it for you, was top 15 on tour last year in birdie percentage. So he wasn't elite, he wasn't top 5. He wasn't even top 10, like some of the other players out there, but he was at least top 15. So maybe worth adding there. At least worth considering as a lean, right? We'll put it in the betting slip and see if we can find anything else to fire on. Not going to take Terrell with the bump, right? So we're not going to consider that. 66.5 on Cam Smith. What do they have him at prize picks? The same thing? Yeah, same thing. Okay. The board's pretty similar, right? Most of these projections are spot on. Might just do this. This might be the combo. It's only 2.79x, but we can live with that. So yeah, let's do that. So the combo over here for Live Golf is going to be these two. It's Bryson from the other post that we just went through. So that doesn't change. And then this Answer at 4.5. The birdie average for round number 1 was about 4.2 per round. The winds look to be pretty much non-existent out there for tomorrow. And it's supposed to be a little bit warmer out there for round 2 than what you had in round 1. And they had preferred lies. They had even more rain there in Las Vegas. So you're probably going to see that again. So let's go ahead and take that. Alrighty, I think that's all we've got for this live stream. Let's see if we've got any more questions or comments to go over. Yeah, let's look at the Wyndham Clark prop. So that's on I'm guessing an Underdog, right? That would have them all the way up to 14. Let's go over here. It's PGA, right? We're on the wrong sport. Let's look at that. So yeah, they've got them at 14 greens. Right? They've got guys at 13 and a half over there on prize picks, though. So I don't think it's like grossly off in terms of projection. But yeah, you're getting that push equity there at 14. I have no problems with that kind of prop. 1.5 bogeys seems like a pretty good lean too. There, that kind of projection. But I also like that. Like, it's not like I think fades. Like, it's not like we're taking fades because I think the golf course is going to play hard, right? Weather projections are perfect, right? That's not what we're saying here. It's more so that just the line is well too high, right? It's just too optimistic. They've got these guys at an unreasonable projection, which is why we'd be taking the under in a few of these circumstances. That's all I've got there for the round 2 stream, though, guys. Going to be on the road, so I'll be bringing my streaming equipment with me. So bear with me. Might be a little bit late notice with some of the live streams that we're doing, but I will be going for live streams in rounds 3 and 4. So it'll be at my uncle's house, out of town completely, in some kind of setup, in some kind of bedroom where I'll be able to go live. So there'll be it's posted on Twitter. They'll be posted in my Discord right when I'm going live and all that. So keep an eye out for all of that. Best of luck with your exposure for today, whether it's for props, whether it's for DFS. Go out there, take down a GPP or two. Let's see some green on those prop slips. And honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of value to enter on Underdog. So I've got to get busy here. I've got to figure out what we're going to do in terms of those fades. And make sure to check it out on Patreon if you want all my prop exposure. And of course, for my entire showdown sheet, including my player pool projections for every player, make sure to check out the Patreon for that as well. It's all posted on there. Everything that was censored on there during the live stream will be posted on Patreon page. Already is actually posted on there. And all the prop slips that'll enter, right? So I'm going to go into the lab, try and figure out what we're going to do, and all that will be posted on there as well. So check it out if that's up your alley, and best of luck with all that exposure. Hit the like button on the way out here. Comment if you're watching this on replay, who your top play is from round 2, and let's have a day.